Hey, let me tell you a story that'll stick with you, especially if you've ever trusted someone too much. Here's the thing: you should always raise an eyebrow when your partner has just a friend they're unusually close with. In my case, my wife insisted it wasn't cheating because it was only emotional. I walked away and let her friends and family be the judge. My wife, Leslie, 27 female, and I, 28 male, had been married for 3 years. And I'll be straight with you, we'd had problems with loyalty before. A few months after we started dating, Leslie began texting another guy, someone she said was just a friend. She felt guilty enough to come clean about it on her own, said it never got physical, and even showed me their messages to prove it. At the time, it ended our relationship, but things eventually led us back together. She promised it would never happen again. It took time, but I forgave her. Her being honest made a difference. If I'd found out on my own, I don't think we could have recovered. After that, I kept my eyes open, but she seemed solid. I didn't see her texting other guys or seeking attention outside our relationship. I figured she'd grown up, so we got married. Things felt good, really good, and I eventually forgot all about what happened in the past. But I was wrong to let my guard down. It all started with a notification. A text popped up on her phone, and something about it made me pause. That's when I found out she was talking to another guy again. I went through the messages as thoroughly as I could. Nothing physical had happened, at least from what I could tell. The guy lived in France. There were a few vague mentions of them possibly meeting, but it didn't seem like serious plans. Still, that wasn't the point. She'd crossed a line again. She was pouring her heart out to this guy, telling him things I thought were private between us. She talked about frustrations in our marriage that she'd never even shared with me. She didn't insult me or make me sound like a bad guy, but still what she said was deeply personal. It felt like emotional intimacy, the kind that was only supposed to exist between her and me. And yeah, the messages were romantic. Not graphic or overtly sexual, but full of that subtle longing you only write when your heart's not with the person you're actually with. That's what hurt most. Some people say cheating is worst when it's physical, but to me, the hardest part was realizing she wanted someone else more than she wanted me. Her words made that clear. I wasn't perfect, but I cared about us. I put effort into our relationship, and even though I logically knew this wasn't my fault, that cheating always reflects the cheater, not the partner, it still hit me hard. But I didn't sit and wallow. I confronted her. I told Leslie I'd seen the messages. She didn't try to lie. She admitted she started chatting with him after he left a thoughtful comment on one of her Facebook posts. She messaged him, and according to her, they just clicked. She said she never intended for it to go that far, and she emphasized it wasn't cheating. They hadn't touched, and he was just a friend. I expected that response. I asked her a simple question. Would you be okay if I talked to another woman the way you talked to him? She hesitated, then said she'd be fine with it, but her pause said otherwise. She knew it was wrong and just didn't want to face it. If I were the one chatting like that with another woman, she'd flip. She threw out all kinds of innocent labels to make it seem harmless, friendship, connection, conversation, anything but what it actually was, emotional infidelity. When I called it that, she got offended. Said I was thinking like a man, like I couldn't imagine a guy and girl being friends without deeper intentions. I didn't raise my voice. I just repeated her own words from the messages. Things like, he makes me feel warm inside. Or talking to him feels like coming home. And the one that really hit me, she imagined visiting Paris to see what their life could be like together. I asked if those were the kind of things you say to a friend. She got mad. Accused me of twisting her thoughts and emotions. Said I was manipulating the situation to make her look like a villain. Then she played the victim card, saying I was being immature for bringing up her past, that she already paid for it, and I should have forgiven and forgotten. But how was I supposed to forget when she was doing the exact same thing again? We didn't end that argument with any resolution. She stood firm that it wasn't cheating. Maybe she never planned to sleep with the guy. Maybe she never said the words, I want you. But opening your heart to someone else, confiding in them like they're your partner, that's betrayal. And no matter what she called it, I wasn't buying her version of the story. After that argument, I felt more sure than ever that what I was feeling was valid. This wasn't paranoia or insecurity, she had crossed a clear boundary. But when I posted online, the reaction was mixed. Half the people agreed with me. The other half bent over backward, trying to make it seem like I was the one overreacting. That didn't sit right with me. It helped confirm what I already suspected, that my first instinct was the right one. So I made up my mind. I talked to Leslie again and told her what I planned to do. I was going to end it this time for good. I should have done it the first time she emotionally checked out on me way back when we were still dating. But this time I wasn't going to wait around to see if she changed. I was done. She did not take the news well. She went straight into defense mode, told me I was being dramatic, that it was just a harmless conversation and I was blowing things out of proportion. She also accused me of violating her privacy by reading the messages. That part really threw me. She even went so far as to say it was abuse that I'd looked through her phone. That word hit me hard. Abuse is a serious thing, and she threw the accusation out there like it meant nothing. She couldn't explain how I had abused her, but she still used the word. That's when I got scared. Scared of what she might say next. Scared of how far she might go to twist the truth. When someone is willing to weaponize language like that, you have to be cautious. So I stopped arguing. I packed my bags and left. I recorded myself packing phone camera on the whole time. I didn't want any misunderstandings about how or why I left. As I zipped up my bags, she stood behind me calling me a coward, said I was running away over something meaningless. I didn't say a word back. I just focused on getting out of there. That same day, I loaded up my car and told a friend what was going on. He agreed I was right to be worried, that the accusation alone was reason enough to be careful. His advice: never be alone with her again. Keep a record of everything. So I did. Once I had the divorce papers ready, we had her served. I didn't hand them over myself. She called me after receiving them. I answered again, recording the call. She asked if I was really doing this, ending 3 years of marriage over a few texts. I told her it wasn't just a few texts, and she knew that. I told her she disrespected our marriage by getting emotionally involved with another man. She went quiet. For a second, I thought she might apologize. But no, she came back swinging. Said I was probably the one cheating and I was just projecting my own guilt. Claimed I was the one looking for an excuse to leave. Honestly, I didn't know if she actually believed what she was saying or if she was just trying to mess with my head. If it was the second one, she almost succeeded. But the facts were the facts. I'd read those messages. They weren't platonic. They read like two people caught in a long-distance fantasy. The only reason they hadn't acted on it was geography. I ended the call. Told her all I wanted now was her signature on the divorce papers. That was it. But of course, things couldn't be that simple. Her sister called me next. We're not super close, but we've always been friendly. This time she was livid. Told me I was heartless. Said Leslie told her everything and that I was destroying a good relationship because of my own insecurities. I didn't expect that. I felt blindsided. Thankfully, I was ready. I recorded that call too, just in case. I asked her if Leslie had shown her the messages, the ones that were supposedly just friendly. She said it didn't matter because she knew Leslie wouldn't lie, which meant no, she hadn't seen them. So I offered to send them. I told her I'd show her some of the texts that started this whole thing, and then she could decide for herself whether I was overreacting. She refused, insisted it wasn't necessary, but I didn't care anymore. I hung up and got ready to send her screenshots. It was time for me to tell my side. I wasn't going to let Leslie get ahead of the truth and paint me as the bad guy. I had saved everything. There were tons of messages, but I picked out the most telling ones, the ones where Leslie and this guy opened up to each other like they were a couple. The ones where she said how badly she wanted to meet him. I included the ones where she talked about how she dreamed about seeing him in Paris. Reading them all at once again made me feel sick. They were even worse than I remembered. They weren't just emotional, they were romantic. These were the kind of messages people send when they're in love. But I kept my feelings in check. I'd already made the decision to walk away. I wasn't going back. When I had everything ready, I sent them out. I wrote a short message above the screenshots. Do these look like appropriate messages for a married woman to be sending to another man? And I didn't just send them to her sister. I sent them to everyone. Leslie had told her version of the story to everyone I knew she was close to. Friends, family, mutual contacts. I told them I knew Leslie was probably saying I divorced her over nothing. I asked them to look at the screenshots and decide for themselves whether that was true. Honestly, I didn't care if they answered. I just wanted to make sure the truth got out. She had already twisted the story. I wasn't going to sit back and let her trash my name. Some people did respond, and surprisingly, most of them were on my side. A few even apologized, said Leslie had downplayed what happened and made herself out to be the victim. Her sister. She never replied. Maybe she realized I was right and didn't know how to admit it. Or maybe it was just easier to stay quiet than face the truth. Most of her family didn't reply either. Maybe out of loyalty, maybe out of shame. But one person did, her mom. She apologized, told me she thought she raised Leslie better, said she'd talk to her daughter and hopefully we could fix things. I didn't have the heart to tell her there was no way. I'd already made peace with the fact that it was over. I didn't care if Leslie changed. I wasn't going to stick around to see it. Her mom meant well. She was kind. So I just thanked her and told her she didn't need to get involved. Leslie, though, she wasn't done. She was furious, said I was trying to turn everyone against her. I told her I hadn't done anything but show people the truth. Her sister had come after me based on a one-sided story, and I wasn't going to sit there and let her rewrite history. I explained that I didn't add any commentary. I didn't manipulate or exaggerate anything. All I did was share the exact messages she sent word for word. If it was all just innocent conversation between two friends, then what was she so worried about? She snapped, said I'd done it out of spite. I reminded her that she was the one who went around telling people I was the insecure, unstable husband who blew up a marriage over nothing. I hadn't planned to make it public. I was ready to move on quietly. But once she brought others into it, I matched her energy. If people ended up judging her, that wasn't on me. It was on the words she wrote and the choices she made. After that, she stopped contacting me. Maybe she realized she couldn't manipulate me anymore. Or maybe she was just too angry to keep playing the game. Either way, it was fine with me. I was already dealing with her in court, and that was more than enough. The divorce itself went quickly. We didn't have much to split. No kids, no shared property that mattered. She tried to get alimony, but we earned about the same, and the marriage wasn't long enough for that to stick. She walked away with nothing. I could tell she was disappointed. Maybe she'd hoped she'd come out of all this with a trip to France paid for. That wasn't going to happen. I haven't kept up with her since. Maybe she kept talking to her overseas pen pal. Maybe they're still in touch, or maybe they fizzled out. Maybe she'll eventually fly out to see him. I doubt it. But even if she does, it's not my problem anymore. What I do know is that the people around her, the ones she tried to win over, now see her for who she really is. I still get messages from people saying they never thought she'd be capable of something like that. Even her mom reached out one evening, told me Leslie was back living at home, and asked if I'd be willing to come talk to her. I told her no. I thanked her for being kind, but explained that Leslie made her choice. And it wasn't the first time. I said I just couldn't trust her anymore. Her mom was upset, but said she understood. Promised she'd have another talk with her daughter. I didn't try to stop her. Honestly, a small part of me liked the idea of Leslie getting chewed out by her mom. But that was the last contact I had with any of them. Eventually, I blocked her family, too. Most of them were nice people, but they were still tied to her. And I knew that cutting Leslie off completely meant cutting off the people who could bring her back into my life. That might sound extreme, but it was what I needed for my own peace of mind. Leaving Leslie was one of the best things I've ever done. She wasn't just unfaithful, she was manipulative. The way she twisted what happened, the way she threw around accusations like they meant nothing, the way she avoided accountability at every turn, it wore me down. It wasn't just the cheating that broke us. It was everything around it. Whether or not she ever met that guy in person didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that she had no respect for the relationship. She broke my trust again. And if I'd stayed with her, I would have lost more than just time. I would have lost myself. Sometimes I look back and wonder what would have happened if I'd just stayed broken up with her after the first time she did this. I would have saved myself a lot of pain. but you live and learn. And if there's one lesson I've taken from this, it's this. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. To whoever needs to hear this, you're not crazy for setting emotional boundaries. You're not overreacting by expecting your partner to keep that part of themselves exclusive to you. Emotional cheating is real. If someone won't admit it, that's on them, not you. To anyone who's been through something like this, stay grounded. Protect your peace. And don't let someone spin a narrative where you're the villain for finally standing up for yourself. That's it from me. Here's the next story. The late afternoon sun filtered through rows of lush green vines, casting a golden haze across the vineyard. The scent of crushed grapes, wildflowers, and fresh earth lingered in the warm air. A soft breeze carried laughter from the far end of the field, where a photographer adjusted his lens and waved his arms to get everyone's attention. Russell Harmon stood a few paces back, hands in his pockets, watching his wife Vanessa pose effortlessly for the camera. On the surface, she looked radiant. Her long brunette hair shimmered in the sunlight. A sleeveless cream blouse clung just right to her figure, and the high heels she insisted on wearing despite the uneven ground gave her the elegant posture of a catalog model. She tossed her head back and laughed at something the photographer said. Heather, their 17-year-old daughter, stood off to the side, thumbs flying across her phone screen, sighing every so often in that dramatic, exaggerated way only teenagers could manage. She wore a maroon sundress Russell had picked out the week before. She hadn't thanked him for it. In fact, she hadn't said much of anything to him lately. Despite the tension, Russell allowed himself a small smile. Every year they did a family photo shoot at the vineyard where he and Vanessa had honeymooned. It had become a tradition. He booked the best photographer, arranged catering, even paid for a private space to keep the background clean. He didn't mind the cost. He never had. Traditions to him were anchors, proof that love even quietly endured. He adjusted the cuffs of his tailored shirt, smoothed his salt and pepper hair, and took a few steps forward, ready to join the next set of photos. Then his phone buzzed in his pocket. Curious, he pulled it out. It was a text from Heather. "You're such a loser. Mom should have left you years ago for someone better." Russell's breath caught. He read it again, slower this time, hoping he'd misread something. But the words were clear, sharp, deliberate. A hollow ache bloomed in his chest, a sick mix of disbelief, sadness, and something darker, something old. A heat behind his ribs that pulsed out to his limbs. He looked up. Heather was still texting, not even glancing in his direction. Vanessa had shifted her pose, hand on her hip, now that same plastic smile she used at fundraisers. For a second, he told himself maybe it was a joke, a teenage outburst. But deep down, he knew. This had been building. He walked over to Vanessa between shots. "Can I talk to you for a sec?" he asked quietly, more to keep his own composure than for privacy. Vanessa barely turned. "Make it fast, lighting's perfect." He held up his phone so she could see the screen. She blinked, read it, and laughed. Not a confused laugh, not even a dismissive one, a full amused laugh. Then before he could process it, she reached over and high-fived Heather. "She's right," Vanessa said, smirking. "I settled for less." The vineyard went quiet. The photographer adjusted his lens in the distance, oblivious. A bird chirped nearby. The world kept moving. Russell stood frozen, holding the phone in midair. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't hiding it. Heather finally looked up, glanced at him with boredom, then went right back to her phone as if he didn't exist. Vanessa turned her back to him and resumed chatting with the photographer, her arm now around Heather's shoulder, laughing like nothing had happened. A little family moment, minus the man who paid for everything. Russell said nothing. He didn't yell, didn't accuse. He just looked down at his hands. The hands that built a company from nothing. The hands that held Vanessa through 3 miscarriages. The hands that signed Heather's first school application. The hands that carried every burden and kept carrying. He reached into his pocket. The house keys jingled softly as he pulled them out. Heavy. Familiar. He looked at them a beat longer, thumb brushing over the worn edges. Then he walked over to the nearest wine barrel. No dramatic speech, no scene, just action. He set the keys down with a soft clink. Vanessa turned. "What the hell are you doing?" Russell looked at her with calm eyes. His voice was quiet but clear. What I should have done a long time ago. Then he turned and walked down the dirt path toward the parking lot. He passed rows of vines thick with grapes, lavender on the breeze, the very vineyard where they toasted their vows 23 years ago. He didn't look back. Behind him, Vanessa scoffed. "Go ahead. Walk away like you always do." Heather rolled her eyes, still texting, not even glancing up. They thought he was bluffing. They didn't understand. This wasn't the beginning of a fight. It was the end of his patience. And Russell Harmon didn't bluff. Not anymore. The jangle of keys at the front door broke the silence inside the Harmon house. The door creaked open, letting in the porch light behind Vanessa and Heather as they stepped into the foyer, both of them laughing like the day had been perfectly normal. Vanessa still wore her white linen blouse, though the collar was a bit rumpled now. Her heels clacked sharply on the hardwood before she kicked them off without looking. Heather dropped her phone into her oversized tote bag and collapsed onto the sofa, still giggling at something on Instagram. "That photographer was hitting on you," Heather teased, pulling her hair into a bun. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Please? Your father couldn't care less about me anymore? Even if he did, what would he do?" Sulk again. They both laughed, but the sound faded faster this time. Heather sat up. "Wait, where's his car?" Vanessa blinked. The garage was quiet. Too quiet. The space where Russell's black Lexus usually sat was empty. No tire marks, no oil stain, just bare concrete. She walked toward the mudroom purse, still over her shoulder. She flipped on the light and opened the door to their bedroom. She stopped cold. The closet doors were wide open. Inside, nothing. The hangers that used to hold his suits, jackets, and shirts were bare, the row of folded sweaters gone. His shoes gone except for a pair of old tennis sneakers left in the corner. She rushed to the bathroom. Empty counter, no toothbrush, no razor, no cologne, even the bottle of prescription painkillers for his back gone. Mom Heather called from the hallway, uncertain now. His office is open, like really open. Vanessa moved fast, her bare feet slapping against the floor as she stepped into the home office. Bookshelves had gaps in them like teeth missing from a smile. His laptop was gone. The file cabinet drawers had been emptied. In the center of his polished mahogany desk sat one sticky note. "Don't forget to water the plants." No signature, no goodbye. "What the hell?" Vanessa whispered. Heather appeared beside her. "Mom, he's seriously gone. Like, gone." Vanessa turned on her heel and stormed into the kitchen, yanking open the cabinet above the fridge, the one Russell always used for storing old mail tax folders, receipts. She reached in. Nothing. She opened the freezer. His favorite bourbon gone, too. Heather stared at her mother. "Did you guys have a fight?" Vanessa didn't answer. Not because she couldn't. Because she didn't know how to. Across town, in a sleek suite on the 18th floor of the Halden Grand, Russell sat with his jacket draped over a leather chair, sleeves rolled up, the top button of his shirt undone. The lights were low. The city stretched out in a grid of glittering lights beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. But he wasn't looking at the view. On the coffee table, a sleek black folder, a laptop, a portable hard drive, and 3 binders labeled Vanessa Garrett and Financials. Opposite him sat Lydia Torres, mid-30s, sharp, unshaken, and known in legal circles as lethal in divorce court. Her blazer was crisp heels crossed at the ankle. On Russell's other side sat Frank Dennedy, grizzled, beefy ex-cop energy and sipping lukewarm hotel coffee. A manila envelope bulging with files rested beside his elbow. Lydia adjusted her glasses. "You sure about this, Russ?" Russell stared at the folder in front of him. A still photo of Vanessa in a hotel hallway kissing Garrett Miller, the tennis coach he had hired, paid for to help Heather win regionals. "I was sure the moment my wife gave our daughter permission to hate me," Russell said. Lydia didn't press further. Frank reached into the envelope and pulled out a thick stack of surveillance photos, laying them out one by one like playing cards. Vanessa at a cafe leaning over to touch Garrett's hand. Vanessa at the tennis club sneaking into a private wing. Vanessa checking into a hotel under her maiden name. Russell didn't flinch. He'd seen it all already. Frank grabbed his iPad and pulled up a series of screenshots, timestamp logs from the Harmon's home security system. "That little smart home prototype you built," Frank said. "Real blessing in disguise. Not only did it track movement, we synced it to a backup cloud server Vanessa didn't know existed. It recorded everything." Russell nodded. I designed it to test audio pickup range. Guess it picked up more than I expected. Frank tapped play on an audio clip. Vanessa's voice muffled but clear came through. Garrett could teach Russell a few things, in bed and out of it. Silence. Russell closed his eyes, not out of shock, but out of confirmation. He'd played that clip more times than he could count. Not because he needed to, but because he had to feel it, had to let it burn so he could move past it. Because revenge, he had learned, wasn't born from rage. It was born from clarity. He slid one of the binders across the table to Lydia. Inside printouts of credit card statements from the past 14 months. Spa trips, hotels, lavish dinners, gifts, all paid for from the joint account. She never used her own cards, Russell said. She wanted me to pay for her affair, without knowing it, and I did. I signed every check. Lydia flipped through the pages, her face unreadable. This is strong. Frank leaned in, and that's just the surface. He pulled out a USB stick and placed it gently on the table. Hotel security cam footage, voice memos, location tracking, texts between her and Garrett that would make a romance novel blush. Russell said nothing, just sat there still. Lydia looked between the two men. If we drop this in court, it's a bomb. Vanessa gets nothing. No house, no alimony. You'll get full custody and we'll file a parental alienation claim. Russell tapped the table once. Do it! Lydia began organizing the folders. Frank slid the USB across the table, one eyebrow raised. Morning light crept through the frosted windows of the Harmon home, soft and warm in appearance, but the air inside the house felt cold, unbalanced, as if the walls themselves knew something was wrong before the people did. Vanessa stood in the kitchen, barefoot robe, loosely tied her hair, twisted up in a messy bun. One hand held a cup of coffee, the other scrolled through her phone. A blinking notification flashed at the top of her screen. Joint account access denied. She frowned, tapped again, same message. She muttered under her breath and tried another joint account. Then the savings, then Heather's college fund. All frozen. What the hell, she whispered. Before she could call the bank, the doorbell rang. She glanced at the clock. 8:04 a.m. Still holding her coffee, she padded to the front door and opened it. Standing outside was a woman who looked like she'd just stepped out of a courtroom, drama-gray tailored suit hair pulled into a flawless twist folder tucked neatly under one arm. Mrs. Harmon, the woman asked smoothly. Vanessa blinked, yes. The woman gave a thin, polite smile. Good morning. By now you've noticed Russell's gone. He also froze all joint accounts. No introduction, no pleasantries, just a calm surgical delivery. Vanessa laughed a short, stunned bark. I'm sorry, who the hell are you? The woman stepped forward and held up a leather wallet with a business card tucked inside. Lydia Torres, attorney at law. Russell retained me months ago. May I come in? Vanessa hesitated. Something in Lydia's expression made it clear this wasn't a bluff. Still, pride stiffened her spine. She stepped aside without saying a word. Lydia entered without waiting and made her way to the living room, sitting neatly on the edge of the couch like a lion preparing to pounce. Vanessa stood in the archway, arms crossed. This is ridiculous. Russell's playing the victim. Is this because of the vineyard thing? He walked away from that, not me. Lydia opened her folder with precise hands. He walked away from 17 years of being disrespected. Not just one bad afternoon. Vanessa's smirk faltered. Lydia slid a thick manila envelope across the coffee table and waited. Vanessa snatched it up. As she flipped it open, the blood drained from her face. The first document, formal petition for divorce, grounds adultery. Behind it, freeze-frame stills from a video Vanessa and Garrett kissing in a hotel hallway. Then a photo of Garrett's hand on her thigh and what was clearly a sweet. The timestamp, same day she told Russell she was at a work brunch. More documents, bank statements showing charges from Heather's college fund, plane tickets to Bora Bora, lavish expenses, gifts, and at the very end, a petition for full custody citing parental alienation. Vanessa's throat went dry. What is this? She whispered, flipping wildly through the stack. He's spying on me. He's using Heather's trust fund against me. Lydia's tone stayed even. You turned that fund into a romantic getaway. And the security system recorded everything. Legally. Vanessa's nostrils flared. This is disgusting. He's manipulating the whole narrative. I won't let him destroy my life just because he's bitter. Thundering footsteps interrupted her. Heather appeared at the top of the stairs wearing pajama shorts and an oversized hoodie, eyes puffy from sleep but alert. She looked from her mom to Lydia, then slowly descended the stairs, cautious. "What's going on?" she asked. Vanessa straightened, her voice shaky but urgent. "Nothing, sweetie. Just some legal nonsense. Made up stuff from your father." Lydia stood and handed Heather the envelope. Her voice was calm. "No lies today. You should see this for yourself." Vanessa reached for it, but Heather was quicker. She stepped back and tore it open. Page after page. Her mother kissing Garrett. Transactions draining her college account. The custody document with her name in bold letters. "Mom?" Heather said, voice barely above a whisper. "Is this real?" Vanessa opened her mouth, closed it. Her eyes darted between her daughter and the lawyer. "Honey, it's more complicated than—" Heather cut her off. Her voice sharpened. "This isn't complicated." She held up the photos like evidence in a trial. "You lied. You used my money. You let me hate him. You told me he didn't care." Vanessa shook her head. "No, baby, you don't understand. He was distant. He never—" "Don't." Heather's voice cracked. Lydia quietly stepped back, her work nearly done. Heather stood trembling, shoulders shaking, tears forming. "You made me hate him," she said, softer this time. "And all he ever did was love us." Vanessa reached toward her. Heather stepped back. The silence that followed was heavier than any shouting could have been. The morning air outside the Oak Ridge Golf and Country Club was crisp and still, the kind of silence that came with manicured lawns and old money. Inside the restaurant buzzed with low brunch chatter, white tablecloths, mimosa clinks, and the soft clatter of silverware over eggs, Benedict, and overpriced truffle fries. Russell sat alone in a private booth tucked into a quiet corner. He'd been here before, but never like this. No warmth in his chest, no anticipation of friendly banter, just purpose. The booth's dark wood frame wrapped around him like a confession box. On the table, one glass of black coffee untouched, and in the center a small silver USB drive that caught the light every few seconds. At exactly 11:07 a.m., Garrett Miller walked in. He moved with the confidence of a man who believed mirrors admired him. Aviators tucked into the collar of his crisp blue polo, designer watch flashing from his wrist, loafers tapping like punctuation with each step. He spotted Russell immediately and smirked. "Oh man," he said as he slid into the booth across from him. "Didn't think you had it in you to do this face to face." He gave a little laugh. "No angry voicemails, no lawyer letters, just brunch. What's next?" A tearful handshake. Russell didn't blink. "Sit." "I'm sitting, champ." Garrett grinned. "So what's on the menu?" "Let me guess you want me to stop seeing Vanessa." His smile widened, waiting for a reaction. Russell's voice was quiet but steady. "You stole from the club." Garrett's grin froze. $850,000. I have proof." Garrett's jaw shifted slightly, his expression tightening for just a second before the smirk returned, this time more forced. "What are you talking about?" Russell leaned back and nudged the USB drive across the table. "It's all on there. Audio from fundraiser meetings, screenshots of forged checks, bank transfers rerouted through your shell company in Phoenix, security footage of you sneaking into the accounting office after hours. Want to watch it?" Garrett stared at the USB like it might explode. A drop of sweat appeared near his temple. That's a bluff." Russell didn't flinch. "You embezzled from the same club you used to charm bored housewives. You really thought no one was paying attention." The silence stretched long and thick. Garrett's fingers hovered near the drive but didn't touch it. His voice cracked slightly. "Okay, let's say you're not bluffing. What do you want? You gonna sue me, ruin me, go public?" Russell shook his head once. "No." Garrett blinked. "No, I want you gone." Russell's voice didn't waver. "Disappear. No goodbyes, no final texts, no vague posts about finding yourself. Just vanish. Change your name. Start over. Somewhere no one knows you." Garrett scoffed. "You're not serious." "If you ever contact Vanessa again," Russell said, calm as ever, or Heather, or even wave at them through a coffee shop window, "I send everything on that drive to the police, the club board, and your mother." Garrett's face turned pale. "You remember your mother, right? Still chairing that youth sports foundation? You son of a—" "No," Russell cut in. "You don't get to say anything. You slept with my wife. You manipulated my daughter, and you did it using money stolen from events meant to help kids. You're not a man, Garrett. You're a parasite. Garrett clenched his jaw. Vanessa won't let me go that easily. Russell raised an eyebrow. She doesn't know what's on that drive. And let's be honest, you've been using her more than loving her. Garrett opened his mouth, closed it. His confidence cracked, reduced to scattered pieces. Where would I even go, he muttered almost to himself. I don't care, Russell replied, sipping his now cold coffee. Alaska, Spain, dig a hole in the desert and crawl into it. But by midnight tonight, you're gone. Garrett leaned back, both hands pressed against his temples. This is blackmail. Russell gave the faintest smile. No. Blackmail would be demanding money or a public apology. I'm giving you a chance to not go to prison. A long silence followed. In the background, the soft clink of silverware and distant laughter. In the booth, the temperature felt like it had dropped 10 degrees. Finally, Garrett stood. His hands shook slightly as he pushed himself upright. He looked at Russell no longer with arrogance, but something closer to fear. This isn't over, he said, but it sounded more like a wish than a threat. Russell stood facing him squarely. For you it is. Garrett grabbed the USB, shoved it in his pocket, and walked out without another word. His confident strut from earlier was now an unsteady retreat. That night, Garrett Miller left town. Vanessa stood at the marble kitchen island staring at her phone. She tapped call again. Straight to voicemail. Garrett picked up the phone, she hissed, pacing in small circles. Where the hell are you? It had been 4 days. No texts, no calls, no posts, nothing. The man who used to send her flirty good morning selfies and late-night promises had gone silent. His phone was disconnected. His social media accounts wiped. The condo he'd once invited her to empty. No trace. Just like Russell. Her world had been thrown into a blender, and now she was the only one left spinning. A notification pinged from her banking app. Relief flickered. Maybe something finally landed. She tapped. Insufficient funds. She blinked, tried another account, then a third. All empty. No, 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 she whispered, hands trembling as she scrolled through the transaction logs. Every withdrawal was legal, every transfer authorized. Russell had drained the accounts, her secret ones too, the ones she used for spa trips and hotel getaways with Garrett. All gone, and all of it perfectly legal because she had left his name on the joint accounts. She'd assumed he was too passive to ever notice. Apparently she assumed wrong. Mom. Heather's voice came from the stairs. Vanessa turned, startled. Her daughter stood there with a half-packed gym bag over one shoulder expression, guarded her lips pressed into a tight line. Where are you going? Vanessa asked. Heather shrugged. Practice. Coach Tina said I could get in extra court time. Vanessa softened. Honey, I know things are tense right now. But your father's doing this to punish me, not you. Heather didn't respond. She just adjusted her bag and headed for the door. You're not even going to say goodbye. Vanessa's voice cracked a little. Heather paused with her hand on the doorknob. You lied to me, she said, still facing the door. You made me think Dad was worthless, that he was some boring guy holding us back. But he's the one who did everything, for both of us. The door closed behind her before Vanessa could speak. She stood in the silence, her own shallow breathing the only sound. Gone was the woman who ruled neighborhood brunches and HOA meetings with a polished smile and a glass of Sauvignon Blanc. She reached for her wine glass. It was empty. She hurled it into the sink. The crash echoed like a gunshot. Hours passed. She paced, Googled lawyers, texted Garrett, checked her banking apps like something might magically appear. Nothing did. Then came a knock. 3 sharp taps. Vanessa opened the door with a flicker of hope. Heather, maybe Garrett. No, it was the last person she wanted to see. Lydia Torres. Dark sunglasses, perfect suit, folder in hand. Well, good morning, Lydia said, stepping inside without invitation. By now, I assume you've noticed Russell's departure, along with your financial sandbox. Vanessa's jaw clenched. You've got some nerve. This isn't a courtesy call, Lydia cut in. It's legal. She placed the folder on the counter and opened it like a surgeon prepping tools. Out slid several pages. Divorce papers. Still frames of surveillance footage, Vanessa and Garrett in a hotel suite kissing. A list of bank withdrawals and flight bookings. Transactions made from Heather's college fund. And finally a petition for full custody. Vanessa's skin went pale. What is this? Lydia's voice stayed even. adultery, misuse of marital funds, and most importantly, parental alienation. Russell has timestamps, audio clips, your voice coaching Heather to push him out. And there's more. She reached into her briefcase and placed a small flash drive on the counter. You didn't know Garrett was recording you? Lydia asked. He was, and he shared those recordings with friends. Russell has them now. Vanessa stumbled back. You're lying. Then listen to the one where you laugh and say, if I knew it would be this good, I'd have left Russell years ago. Vanessa backed into the wall, shaking her head. This is illegal. This can't be admissible. It's not for court, Lydia said. It's for your reputation. Out the window, Vanessa noticed two neighbors on the sidewalk, talking, looking toward her door, whispering. You've become toxic, Lydia said calmly. Other tennis moms are passing around screenshots. The HOA had an emergency vote. You're off the board. Vanessa gripped the counter. Her knees buckled slightly. I can fix this, she whispered. I need to talk to Russell. He knows how I get. He'll listen. I didn't mean all of it. Lydia tilted her head. Do you really think he cares what you meant after you high-fived your daughter for calling him a loser? Vanessa's lip trembled. Tears brimmed. I just want to talk to him. Lydia held her gaze for a long moment. Then quietly. He already gave you everything. Time, love, years of silence, and you set it all on fire. She turned and left. It took Vanessa nearly 2 hours to gather the strength to drive across town. She changed outfits twice, fixed her makeup, rehearsed what she'd say. She found the address in the divorce packet, Russell's temporary suite, in a luxury residence tower. She knocked. Russell answered. He didn't look angry, just calm, tired, detached. Vanessa offered a weak smile. Hi. He didn't move, didn't invite her in. I want to talk, she began. I know things got out of hand. We were both hurting. I was confused, but I never stopped. You don't get to talk to me anymore, Russell said softly. Her breath caught. You high-fived our daughter while calling me worthless, he said, voice steady. I believed in you. That was my mistake. And then he shut the door. The polished floors of the family courthouse caught the morning sun and threw it back in sharp glares. Every footstep echoed through the halls like a slow, distant drumbeat. Russell sat on a wooden bench outside Courtroom 4B. His suit was pressed, his back straight, his hands folded, but his knuckles were tight pale with tension. Next to him, Lydia Torres clicked her pen and scanned through the custody binder one more time. You sure you're ready for this? She asked quietly, not looking up. Russell didn't hesitate. Heather needs peace. I won't let her grow up surrounded by that chaos. Footsteps echoed from the entrance. A voice followed. Russ? He looked up. Vanessa stood with Heather by her side, though not quite beside her. A solid 2 feet of space separated them, a visible line of tension neither crossed. Vanessa wore a conservative navy dress, pearls at her throat, and a faint smile that looked more like a wince. Heather wore jeans, a maroon hoodie, hair pulled back in a quick ponytail. Her hands were buried in her pockets, her expression unreadable. She looked at Russell and gave him a small nod. His heart tugged. He nodded back. The bailiff called the case number. Anderson versus Anderson. Custody hearing. Both parties please enter. Inside, the air was stale with the scent of paper ink and disinfectant. A single round table stood in the center of the courtroom, flanked by 2 chairs on each side. The judge, an older woman with glasses perched low on her nose, looked up from the files and took in the room. We're here for a preliminary custody mediation regarding the minor Heather Anderson, she said. This is not a full trial. The goal is civil dialogue and a workable arrangement. She glanced down at the documents, her gaze lingering on Vanessa's file. Mr. Anderson has petitioned for full custody, citing emotional manipulation, parental alienation, and concerns about the home environment. Mrs. Anderson disputes these claims and is requesting shared custody. She looked up. Do both parties understand? Yes, Your Honor, Russell said clearly. Vanessa nodded faintly, yes. Heather sat between them. She didn't touch the water bottle in front of her. She didn't look at her mother. The judge tapped her pen. Given the nature of this case, I strongly recommend a 50-50 arrangement. Alternating weeks. This maintains relationships with both parents and creates stability. Vanessa's shoulders sagged, slightly visibly relieved. Russell's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Then Heather stood. The scrape of her chair startled everyone. She stood tall, hands still in her pockets, voice steady. "I want to live with my dad full-time." Vanessa's head snapped toward her. "Heather, I'm not done," Heather said, still not looking at her. She turned to the judge. "When I turn 18, I don't want any contact with my mom. Not on my birthday, not at graduation, not on holidays." Vanessa's mouth opened. Her face paled. "She manipulated me," Heather continued. "She made me believe my dad didn't care about me. She told me he was holding us back. She told me to roll my eyes when he made jokes. She made me hate him." The judge held up a hand. "Heather, I need to be sure you understand the weight of what you're saying. This isn't a small decision." "I do," Heather said firmly. "I was cruel to the one person who never stopped trying. I ignored him. I laughed at him. I told him he was embarrassing when he showed up to my tennis matches with a giant sign." She looked at Russell now, her voice cracked. "But he still came. Every time. Even when I told him not to." Russell's throat tightened. He sat in the back row, quiet, always there, cheering. Vanessa tried again. "Heather, you're upset. This is—" Heather turned to her mother. "No, I'm clear." Her voice was colder now. "You told me he wasn't good enough. You told me he didn't deserve us. I believed you because I trusted you." Tears spilled over. "But I watched the man you said was pathetic walk out with nothing and still keep his dignity. He didn't yell. He didn't break anything. He didn't even raise his voice. He just left. Because he was done." Vanessa looked like she'd been slapped. "I was scared," she whispered. "No," Heather said. "You weren't scared. You were selfish." The courtroom was silent. Even the buzz of the lights felt loud. Heather turned back to the judge. "I want to live with my dad." Vanessa covered her face with her hands, trying to hold it together. But Heather didn't look at her again. Chapter 7. The New Photo. The seasons had shifted. Summer had slipped into autumn, and with it came endings and beginnings. For Russell, nothing snapped back into place overnight. But slowly, like dawn after a long storm, light returned. Gone were the silent meals, the empty smiles, the stress thick enough to suffocate. In their place, laughter at breakfast. Coffee mugs mismatched but warm. A bond between father and daughter no longer strained, but rebuilt, stitched together with truth, regret, and second chances. But for Vanessa, the unraveling had only just started. Her luxury condo, paid for in part with Russell's bonuses and back-end deals, was gone. Foreclosed. HOA fees had piled up. Bills went unpaid. Credit card debt swelled like a wave she couldn't outrun. Garrett had vanished. Or so she thought. One rainy evening, Russell sat on the couch, coffee in hand, watching the local news. Upstairs, Heather was on a call with an admissions advisor, nervously pacing and biting her nails. The news anchor's voice broke through the silence. Garrett Miller, former tennis coach and fundraiser director, was arrested today in connection with a federal embezzlement case totaling over $850,000. Russell watched calmly as the footage played Garrett in handcuffs escorted into a courthouse. An anonymous tip led to a discovery of forged invoices, misused donor funds, and fake tax filings. He faces multiple felony charges. Russell didn't react. He just picked up his phone, opened a secure folder, and quietly deleted the last copy of the audio files. The chessboard was cleared. Across town, Vanessa stood behind the bar at O'Hanley's near the train station. The air smelled of spilled whiskey and fryer grease. Her apron was stained, her eyes hollow. "Table 3 wants ranch," her manager barked. She nodded, grabbed the bottle, and walked it over. At the table, one woman did a double take. "Vanessa, oh my God!" It was Carla Simmons, another former tennis mom. Vanessa froze. Carla didn't say anything else. She turned to whisper to the woman next to her. Snickering followed. Vanessa flushed heat rushing to her cheeks. Later that night, during her 10-minute break, she stepped into the alley behind the bar. The wind bit through her uniform. She lit a cigarette with shaking hands. Her phone buzzed. A voicemail. It was Heather. "I got into Emerson, full ride. Thought you'd want to know. I guess. No warmth, no invite to call back. Just facts. Like an obituary for what used to be." Vanessa didn't cry. She didn't have any tears left. Back home in the now peaceful, freshly painted house, Heather sat at her desk. Textbooks stacked, laptop open. The cursor blinked on a blank document. Her scholarship essay was due. After a long pause, her fingers started typing. The man I misjudged, rebuilding trust with my father. For a long time, I believed a version of my dad that wasn't real. I pushed him away. I thought he was weak. I didn't see the strength it takes to keep loving someone who's being told they aren't enough. I didn't understand sacrifice until I learned what he gave up without ever complaining. I judged him through someone else's bitterness. But now I see the man who sat through my tantrums with patience, who stood quietly in the rain at my matches, who packed his things and left without breaking a single thing even though we broke him. She wiped her eyes. My father is the reason I know what resilience looks like. And I hope I live in a way that makes up for all the days I didn't say thank you. Weeks passed. Leaves scattered across sidewalks in waves of copper and red. One Friday afternoon, Russell stepped into the photographer's studio downtown, just a narrow brick building between a florist and a bakery. Heather had insisted on a new portrait. For my college app, she said. The photographer greeted him warmly. Mr. Anderson, right on time. We got the print in. I think you'll be happy. She led him to a small table where a leather-bound photo album waited. The first page held the original portrait, Russell in a navy suit, Heather in a red dress, Vanessa in matching lipstick. But now the image was different. Vanessa had been edited out, not crudely, not in anger, seamlessly, softly, like she'd never belonged in the frame. It was just Russell and Heather now, father and daughter, smiling. He stared at it. Is it what you wanted? The photographer asked. He nodded. Yeah. Outside, kids laughed. The bells above the bakery door jingled. Russell climbed into the driver's seat of his car. Heather sat beside him, earbuds in, humming to herself. He handed her the envelope. She opened it slowly, studied the photo. At first, she didn't say anything. Then her lips curled into a smile. And for once, it was real. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.